Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be a welcome for the next hour. Guys, we have an episode that has been years in the making. There's a long backstory here. We got Nic Nemeth here. You might know him as Dolph Ziggler, wrestler extraordinaire. His new podcast with his brother, the Nemeth Brothers, is out on Podcast One now. We're going to talk about that. We have a lot to discuss. Let me give the backstory here, okay? You were very gracious years ago when this show was on Gas Digital to come in. We did an in-studio interview. We had a lot of fun. Two heels cackling the whole time. I was really stoked. Go to LA, film Rogan. I don't remember what appearance this was. I leave Rogan and I get a call from Louis, Jay Gomez, who was the head of Gas Digital. And with my Soviet brain, when the boss calls, I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting fired. I don't know how I can get fired from my own podcast, but that's what I thought.
But it can happen, yes.
It can happen. So it was yeah. Watch out, yeah. Ryan's gonna give you a call.
He's like, hey, listen, just heard you with Malice. Yeah, we're done. We're done. Well, I'm sorry, we're done. But Ryan's gonna continue it on his own.
Yeah. They had lost the tape and they didn't back it up, and it had never happened before since it was a complete fluke. I felt horrible. I had them send you a bottle of fancy cologne, and then the fragrance company thought it was fake, and they didn't even send it. So, and I think we ended up getting it to you, but that was the whole situation. I felt bad about it. But one of the things I remember extremely vividly from this interview, and this is something that everyone, even if you're not a wrestling fan, can learn from you, it's this. You aren't like a genetic freak like Andre the Giant or The Big Show, right? You're not some huge, insane bodybuilder type like Ultimate Warrior, Batista. You're also not like this crazy Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair figure where like everyone's just obsessed with you. Yet your career in a field where people do not have a long shelf life has been extremely long. And that means you're doing something right. And when people do things right, other people can learn from them. And what I remember very vividly is you told the story of how when you were coming up, Stunning Steve Austin was the shit. And all the guys you were with training wanted to be another Steve Austin. And you said, nope, put me in pink.
Yeah, right? Very much so. There's a couple, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin and Randy Orton at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, they were very serious. They got all the cool lines on TV.
Who am I thinking? Who's stunning?
No, that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was Stunning Steve.
Okay,
Austin, when he made the transformation to the biggest money-making guy of the Attitude Era, or him and Rock, whatever. But anyway, everybody was like, and by the way, I want to do the job. I'm like, I want to be that guy that kicks everybody's ass, tells them to go to hell, gets the last laugh in the last line. But you can't have an entire production of everybody being the top guy beating everybody up. So I wasn't planning for the next 20 years, but I said, man, everybody seems similar here. They have short black hair or shaved heads, and they all want to be badasses. I go, I wonder if I can find a different route that can stand out more. Like, oh, black trunks, short hair. I go, I had short hair, so I'm like, I'll start growing it out. I'll dye it blonde. I put it in friggin' pigtails sometimes just to have it even stand out more. And then pink trunks and go without going too deep into the business of selling is a big part of our business.
Yeah.
And so when damage is inflicted upon you and you're in some type of jeopardy, people need to reach out and feed through you, and you express that and you feed off of that. And a lot of people didn't want to look weak as they thought at the time. So I went out of my way to go, I'll be the guy that everybody wants to work with because I don't mind looking weak as long as I'm not losing 1,000 times in a row. So it's like, it's hard to have this like art of it to where I'm very, very good at having it seem like I got knocked out MMA style on the way I can do the art of the sell and doing different things. So I focused on that and tried to stand out as the guy who's flying around. I'm not going to get the last line, but I am going to be in pink and standing out. And I was the one who was getting called up to the majors before most of those guys who didn't want to give a little,
Yeah, I when I started I doing punditry, I said to myself, no one cares what you think, so say something interesting or say something uninteresting in an interesting way, right? And that really served me well. And I think a lot of people, like, if we're not going to get too political in this episode, but if you're going to be the podcast where you talk about how much you hate Trump or how much you love Trump,
right.
We have 100 of those. What is your angle, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm the leftist who likes Trump. Okay, that's something. Or I'm the conservative. I mean, something, anything.
Yes.
Like, be that guy in pink and the pigtails. Yeah. And I think people are so, especially when they're starting. Like, I've had a guest early on the show, and I invited them on, and they didn't want to do it because like Sarnovich had been a guest, right? And it was just, the thing is, people are so scared of the reputation. It's like, if you're not a name, you don't have a reputation.
Yeah,
You have
right.
to start swinging for the fences.
And even if you do have somewhat of a name and somewhat of, you're not public enemy number one.
Right.
Everyone thinks they are,
Right.
but they're not. Nobody cares. You're like, man, my Twitter was blowing up. I had 500 messages. You go, do you have any idea how insignificant that is to life and what everyone else is doing in real life? And by the way, 500 is way more than people actually are getting. So,
Yeah.
like, you don't realize what percentage of people are on Twitter that give a shit, that have you. You're not going to be the main character, not even for the day. Sorry, but good luck and keep trying.
One of the things why growing up on wrestling has really helped me out with politics is there was a thing back in the day when WWF was coming up, and it was still called WWF, and they basically had this completely artificial reality in the sense of, if someone was in NWA, and NWA was the name of the organization, people fact check me. He's like, "Don't you mean NWO?" No, it was called NWA. Um, if a wrestler came over from that franchise, they pretended like he had never existed, right? It was this universe where you couldn't change the channel. And NWA didn't have as much distribution as WWF, whatever. And there was a very big moment when Ric Flair came over to WWF. They showed the belt, and it was like, holy crap. The thing is, though, what people don't realize, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this kind of fake reality is constructed. Like CNN and these other organizations, Fox as well, they do the same thing. If something is happening in a world on the internet or somewhere else where they don't want to talk about it, they basically pretend it doesn't exist, so that the viewers from these outlets just think things happen spontaneously. It's like, no, this has been a thing on the internet for 3 years.
Yeah, and that is a problem that we have. I think I'm no longer with WWE. They're starting to embrace that everybody knows everybody a little bit, or
Okay.
even when it comes to their minor league program, developmental, to where like they have their own TV show and they act like you, like, hey, this is a TV show with 500,000 to 1 million people watching it every week. You know who this is, but we're still gonna like have some a little bit of crossover and have some pre-tapes and have some movie clips that introduce you just in case you didn't see. But yeah, there was a long-standing with the old boss. It was like, whatever the hell you did somewhere else, it never existed. And it's like, okay. And then, but in those weird situations where it is like, hey, I'm coming over with, I'm the real world champion. Oh, we have to acknowledge this other thing exists. Because yeah, a lot of times unless you're introducing the other side just to like straw man and make them the villain, like you usually go, I want nothing to do with this. We're starting from scratch. And a lot of times, that was what the Vince McMahon would do. Is like, no matter what, you were 10-time world champion somewhere else. That never happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're a plumber. Here's your wrench. Go to the ring. And you're like, okay. And you make it happen and make it work. And then you have to rebuild yourself again. But if you're smart, as WWE very much so is now, is they embrace that we know you from wrestling in Japan for 10 years or wrestling at NWA or Ring of Honor or AEW or anywhere else. And it's like, we're going to play some clips, but still reintroduce you, but acknowledge it and make it go forward. And it's like, that's just win for everybody, because now you're not pretending that your world is this different universe that exists in a vacuum,
Yeah, but it's just fascinating because, like, I see a lot on social media where regular people are like, "Oh, if this person runs for president, then they're going to have to discuss A, B, and C." It's like, no, they don't.
No,
Like, if
no,
they don't bring
yeah.
if CNN doesn't want to talk about it, it never
It
happened.
never happened. And if anybody, if CNN doesn't want to discuss it, and the one, say it's a Democratic person and one Republican guy, Scott Jennings, I think, if he wants to talk about it, they'll just say, no, that's not real. And you
Yeah.
go, okay, and then you move on. But and by the way, that's any friggin' channel. It's all entertainment.
Yes.
I understand, but that's the first one that popped in my head. Like, hey, this thing happened. No, it didn't. Three
Yeah.
people just told that one guy it didn't. All right, I guess that 3-1. Come on,
Are you, when you were starting out, you were obviously very young, did you expect to be still, rolling around, so many years later?
Yes and no. You know how everyone thinks they're going to be the one that doesn't die and get old. Uh, for years I'm like, I just can't. At 24, 28, I'm like, how can I ever be old and not, like, what? Like, it's not going to happen. And also, again, that you mentioned, like, I'm 5'11", 195 pounds. I'm not a legacy. My dad wasn't the champ. I don't have some story or piece or tie. I don't have anyone in WWE. I didn't have anyone in the meetings like rooting for me. I had one guy, but they would go out of their way to mess with him by having me lose. It's a whole thing, whatever. But there was like all these bits and pieces that say, even if I do really well for myself, maybe I'll get 3 or 4 years of TV time. And then when I go wrestle around the world independently, maybe I'll have a name from being on TV. And I remember they talked to us, the new group who had just been hired when I got hired in 2024. 2004, sorry. I was 24 years old. And it was at the average TV time of someone's career right now is 2.9 years. So you hope to get 2 or 3 years of TV time, and then people will pay more money for you when you eventually lose this job, because it is Hollywood and there is one movie company at the time, and that's it. And you're going to hope to make your art house movies and have a name to you, and you can bounce around. So I got trained to be ready to go once this doesn't work out, because it is Hollywood and all this stuff. But I go, when I announced to my parents, I go, hey, I'm going to graduate college and I'm going to go be a professional wrestler. And instead of everyone going, yeah, right, everybody was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, I think so. Like, no one was like, save your money or good luck. Like, I said I'm going to go to college first. I'll have some bullshit background degree, and then I'll go do this. And I go, man, you know what? I had a small role as a golf caddy, and that ended in a couple of months. And then I had a small role as a male cheerleader, and that did a year run, but it killed my credibility, because everyone wants to be Stone Cold Steve Austin and fighting for the world title at WrestleMania. And I'm a smaller guy who was a joke cheerleader guy that got beat up, and now I have to reintroduce myself again and hope for the best. And sometimes in Hollywood you get one shot. I was given 3, and I said, if I get that third one, I'm going to give them every excuse in the world to need me to be there. I want to be the best young guy there is with no excuses. So there's no way I get fired. There's no way I get dumped into a box. They need me there. And I feel like that's what kind of happened.
But that's the kind of advice that's very useful for other people in other industries. So like what exactly did you do to be so needed?
So first and foremost, I never came from independence. So I came from just as a fan. And so I didn't have a background of like, when I walked in getting paid by WWE without having fallen down once or known anything. So I was learning, and I noticed right away, one, I really wanted to learn. I go, anything I do, I want to be the best. I saw Kurt Angle go to the Olympics, win a gold medal with a broken freaking neck, and now he's kicking ass in WWF or WWE. And I go, I want to be able to do that. I go, I hope I can. And I fell down, and it hurt, and I did it wrong. And I go, how do I make this right? And I just kept going and going. And it was very light schedule. It was like 3-4 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day. And I was getting paid to train. Like, this is crazy. So I said, everybody here so far knows all these basics. The one basic class is just for me to learn to catch up to everybody. And I said, I want to get in the next 6 months, 3 years of learning in. So I would do those 4 or 5 days a week with WWE practice. That was mandatory. Then 4 or 5 days a week, I would come in at night. My buddy had a key to the arena, and we would just go over what we learned that day. Twice as long as that, and I just wanted that muscle memory. I just wanted to be smooth. And in 6 or 8 months, I feel like I got 3 years of training, because I overdid it all the time. Because I wanted to catch up, but I also wanted to be like, holy shit, this guy's getting it really fast. So, and a little bit of both of that came out, and they were like, wow, you're really getting this. And you're starting to understand the inside of the business, that when you're just supposed to be learning how to fall down and listen to people. So I said, I'm going to focus on being the best to get that chance back. And it was, you could sit at home and get paid every week, or not get paid depending on your contract, and just hope that you get called up for no reason, or you'll get fired one day. And I said, I'm a workaholic anyway. I said, I don't want to sit at home. I'm going to get forgot about. I'm a small guy. I go, can I fly myself into the new training facility that's in Florida? Let me work out there, work on some characters, pitch some ideas, and go, I know you don't need me right now, but I'm ready to go if you do. And so they saw that I had flown myself into their developmental place, reinvented myself, had my work, and my work was, even for a younger guy, it wasn't awesome, but it was really damn good. And a character that I was like a little guy who had to like jump in my big bodyguard's arms, still wasn't afraid to do like the pink and the pigtails kind of deal.
Yeah.
But also I could back it up with some work and some mic work. So it was kind of becoming a really good, smaller dickhead guy, but who could back it up in the ring and possibly win a world title one day. I'd be a smaller guy, but I can make it work. And I think they saw all those pieces, brought me in for a dark match, and which is like before the show starts.
Yeah.
No fanfare. It won't be televised. They might record it from like the hard camera. And It was like, hey, do this 5 minute match, really basic, do this one thing. Got it. And the other guy's going to beat you. Cool, no problem. We do 4.5 minutes of the 5. We're getting to this other guy's finish where he's going to hit me with it and pin me. 30 seconds ago, we've done all our stuff. We've done the good guy stuff, the bad guy stuff. And they go, hey, you just got 3 more minutes added, and the finish is now you up. And normally someone young, about a year in, year and a half, would be like, oh shit, what do I do? Hey, what should we do? And you freak out. And for some reason, I was scared. But for some reason, I would calmly was like, hey, buddy, hey, we're not done yet. We're going to do one more thing here. You're going to put me down. We're both going to sell. We'll get to this. And I was just like calling it on the fly for a minute and a half, being very, very new and not good enough to do it, but good enough to have it see the fans couldn't tell I was panicking. And we got to the next thing and we got it done. And I was like, man, that was scary. And I got to the back and I told people like, wow, you're supposed to be like freaking out. That's a test. And it didn't look like you did. And so, first of all, in my head, I was like, oh, fuck. I should have known better. And then, but we got to it. I was like, oh, we can just do this and this. And somehow it started that I was one of those guys that has the brain to fix something with multiple people out there on the fly without giving away the game to the fans watching. And I've really grown into that very much so, I think.
Folks, let's face it, life can be stressful, it can be overwhelming, and it's not just your mind that suffers when you're feeling tense and anxious. Stress can make a mess of your digestion and immune system too, but here's the thing, you can handle it. Introducing Just Calm, it's the breakthrough new stress-busting formula from Just Thrive. Say goodbye to frazzled nerves, say hello to a steady, chill, more relaxed you. Just Calm's exclusive mood-lifting blend is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe a little easier in as little as 4 weeks. And for next level mood and immune support, give the award-winning Just Thrive probiotic a try, as I'm doing and am reaping the benefits. It not only has 1,000 times better survivability than most probiotics, but this spore probiotic banishes bloat and constipation so your gut can produce more serotonin, which is your happy hormone. Plus, it supports better sleep. You can wake up feeling refreshed and revitalized. With Just Calm and Just Thrive probiotic, you'll have the ultimate stress-fighting duo to help you win the day every day, and all with a money-back guarantee. What do you have to lose? For a limited time, you can try Just Thrive risk-free. You can save 20% off a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic and Just Calm when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code WELCOME. That's like getting a month for free with a money-back guarantee, and a portion of every purchase goes to Vitamin Angels, which is a nonprofit organization that saves the lives of millions of children and moms-to-be around the world by ensuring they get the vitamins and minerals they need to stay healthy and strong. To learn more about Just Thrive Health and all their clinically backed products, don't miss my special episode where I interviewed Tina Anderson, who is the CEO and co-founder. Take control today with Just Thrive. Folks, traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat, which can lead to acne, to allergies, to stuffy noses, and it is gross. Miracle Made offers a full line of self-cleaning, eco-friendly bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. They're infused with silver, and that prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, which leaves them staying cleaner and fresher 3 times longer. No more gross odors. And by using these silver-infused fabrics, which were inspired by NASA, the Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, so you get better sleep every night. They're very comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Miracle Made sheets are designed for your skin. Bacteria can clog your pores. It causes breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Here's all you got to do. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo Malice at checkout, you get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you aren't 100% satisfied, full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice. Use code MALICE to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. God, there's so much that you've mentioned that I have parallels with my career, which is so interesting because it's you would think author, wrestler, there's not going to be parallels, but there's a lot. And I'll tell a story. I've told this before, which is when I was working in 2000. So at Goldman Sachs, I was doing help desk, and I wanted to become an author. So when I would work all day, at tech support, then I'd come home and write, and they wanted me to do overtime, and I didn't want to do overtime because that hour of extra pay and a half was not worth it to me, because that was an hour of writing I could have done because I had to commute. It was exhausting work. The people on my team couldn't wrap their heads around it. They're like, but you're getting paid. I'm like, but I'd rather have the time. And to them,
Right.
it was like saying I want to eat paste. It was like, what are you talking about? And I'm glad I did it. But to your point, nothing can uh, um, there's nothing that's better than putting in the work, right? So
Yeah.
if you're sitting around waiting for opportunities, sometimes they will happen. But Warhol said you create your own luck. Like, everyone I know who's successful, and I hate that this word has a negative connotation, is a bit of a hustler. They
Yeah.
had to hustle their own opportunities. They had to create them. And the thing with like brainstorming sessions, I was a business major, is if you throw out 100 ideas and 99 are terrible and one is great, that meeting was a huge success.
Yes.
So I'm sure when you were there, like, some of these ideas were completely stupid,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter that a bunch of them were stupid. If you
Yeah.
get the one good one, that's all we need. That was the whole point of this meeting.
Yeah, that's so true when it comes out. And by the way, as you get older, you realize that time is more important even than a lot of money. If that overtime was
Of course.
$800 an hour plus this, like, you realize, man, my time. You get older, you start contemplating death, whatever. Like, oh, I guess I can get old, I can die, whatever. Maybe we'll see. But like, you still have that where that time was still hey man, that time was still more important to me than doing the work and grabbing an extra paycheck to make sure I was okay down the line. And sometimes you got to make sacrifices, and sometimes I don't have a wife and kids at home, but if I did, I'm like, hey, listen, I have to take off for even more than a wrestler does,
Yeah.
because I need to make sure that I can work in this job and make it special in the next couple of years, and it's going to be worth it. Trust me. And it might not have been. It's Hollywood. Sometimes they go, hey, no thanks, you're good. We got 10,000
Right.
people waiting in line. They're a foot taller, more jacked, and they'll listen. And you're like, okay. But if you find that way to go, I don't sleep much anyway, but when I was laying awake at night going, did I do everything? Didn't you tell yourself at 5 this was your dream job? Yes. So are you sure you're too tired to write one more thing or film one
Yeah.
more thing to send to them? Shit. Get out of bed, turn the lights back on, write one more thing, film a little, as it gets in the more digital age, like film a little video and just send it to Vince. Hey, Vince, I was thinking this. Here's 20 seconds of it. And it was one more thing to go, man, this fucking guy that I don't even know his name, he's not on our show. We beat him up for a year, but he keeps sending me an idea. And you know what? 3 of those ideas he laughed at. But one of the times he went, that's pretty good. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden you get an email that says, hey, you're flying in to try it. Holy shit. I thought I was fired, but I'm flying in to try it. Like, you
Yeah.
never know. And it doesn't always work. But shit, like, the harder you work, the luckier you get is a real life deal.
One of the things you're best at is being a heel and getting heat. So what people, that's because I cackle, right? So
Yeah.
I think you realize
Yes.
you're basically every 80s movie villain.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you're the
have
ski,
I have leaned into that so much, word
yes,
for word, every
yeah,
single
you're
80s.
that ski
And I
instructor.
accidentally have a collar up. This is on
Yeah.
accident. Totally accident. I'm Blaine, and I'm gonna race you for my dad, who really owns the ski park, and all your poor, dirty janitor family is gonna be out of here on your ass. But we're gonna fight down the mountain, and me and Buffy are gonna celebrate with champagne in the hot tub. But I love that my collar is up. That I haven't worn a collar up in a while. And you embrace it, and it's still people are just like, I want to be the good guy who gets everyone to pat him on the back and wins the world title all the time. And it's like, you got to have evil without the good, so you got to have the
Yeah,
other
and
side.
it's what I'm curious about is wrestling fans are so passionate, and it's such a
Yes.
fun. People really get invested in it. Do especially with kids? Do people realize it's like an act, or I mean, it's only half an act. There's got to be some truth to it, a
As
little bit.
it seriously, and it becomes more like, it's not Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, and then you see him on the street, and you're like, that's the Mission Impossible guy. You go, that's Tom Cruise, the movie star. But when it comes to us, grown-ups, kids, everyone knows at this point, unless you're 6 or 8, that it is a show.
Yeah,
Some people, and I don't want to, I'm not breaking that magic. When you are a kid who believes in it, I did. You go, hey, listen, I'm gonna do my best to beat this guy's butt for you and me. And it's like that's that Santa Claus fun
Yep.
magic. I'm not taking it away from anybody. But when it comes to the grown-ups who do that, but they'll see you in the street and they don't go, there's that good wrestler. They go,
Right.
Dolph Ziggler, here's the thing. And you're like, it's actually Nick now. But yeah, I got it. It's fine. But you can't, you almost have, you're your character in real life when you're negotiating against Vince McMahon for your contract. You're you and a businessman, but you're your character and you have to take it somewhat realistically. So it is a weird thing when people you're out and it's like, yeah, you are that character. And really quickly, Lance Storm trained me when I was brand new, and he goes, usually we train brand new guys as baby faces, the good guy, because the heels in the 1800s and 1900s led the match because they were the veterans that had been around and they could call all the shots, make the baby face look good when it's time to end the match, whatever. But he goes, you're just kind of a dick. So I'm going to train you as a heel. And I go, okay, yep, sounds good. And I feel like I embraced that. And he did not say that to anybody else at the camp. So I think he knew what he was talking about.
Heel on arrival. That's, oh my god, that is so that is so epic. It's like I've never read any of these books, but I've been at parties where people are going around asking, wondering what Harry Potter house they've been, and they just look at me and they're like, yeah, Slytherin. And it's just like, it's just, yeah, okay. It's
I don't
just like,
even know those movies, but I know that that's
yes,
the right place for you. Yes.
yeah. But I've had friends who are UFC champions, like high level up MMA, like the real deal.
Yeah.
And every UFC fighter, no matter how, or MMA star, you have people coming up at the bar being like, I can kick your ass, right?
Yep.
So is that something you have to deal with as well?
All the time, and it's gotten a lot better. But you'll know this person in general. Like one that used to be all the thing because one, you aren't the MMA guys, so you're the guy on TV who way more people see and get a lot more money. So I'm actually subconsciously way more pissed at you and ready to kick your ass because I know you probably won't punch me back because one, you might get fired, and
Right.
two, you're not a real MMA trained guy, so I could probably take it. And again, there's been decades where I was like, in the main story of everything, again, 5'11", 195, someone's like, oh, this is who I'll take all my anger out. I barely got through high school and I hate my job bricklaying. I'm going to teach you a
Yeah.
lesson. And that happened a lot and it slowly went away. I can somewhat cover my ass if somebody or one or two guys messes with me. But I always diffuse the situation, or try to, with jokes. That's just like a natural thing I do anyway. But that happens. But you'll recognize this. I don't know how much you party, but it's like if you go out to bars and it gets late and you get those guys that do that extra on your arm and you go, and it's like the 15th time it's happened that night. And then this guy, and it's like people drunkenly do that. This was on purpose and drunk and a little anger and like, why is this guy on TV and why is my girlfriend cheating on me? And you get that slap on the shoulder and you go, and it's like, hey buddy, what can I help you with? And luckily I'm usually much more less drunk than those people, so they think they have a better shot of knocking me out. Like, you have a way worse shot right now because I can just go like in a movie, move it out of the way, and then pin your arm behind your back. And now everyone's gonna film it, and I'm gonna look like I know how to fight, and you're gonna look like a pussy. So what do you want? So that shoulder grab and that slap that just a little too hard on the back happens way too often. Yes.
Yeah, 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 there's something about the stuff you grew up with. You know, it's like when you hear a song that you fell in love with when you were 14, 13, and then you hear it now, you're like, this song kind of sucks. But you liked it when you were 13.
Yes.
So like the guy you hated when you were 13, now you're 27, you hate him in a way a 27-year-old can't hate somebody.
And so many people, my favorite is, oh, I hated you. And then I stopped being 8, and then I hated Cena and liked you. And you're like, now you got it. Or someone's like, I hate your guts. I go, how old are you? I'm 11. When you're 16, you'll figure out that I'm the real life good guy here. So yeah, don't worry. You got a couple years. Enjoy it. That is a very, that happens as much as the hard slap on the shoulder, which is really funny.
Is it still fun for you after all this time, or is it more of a grind?
It's the funnest
Oh, really?
fucking
Okay,
thing ever. And one day, it has to happen soon. Nothing crazy. One day I'm going to get injured or hurt, and then I got to go, hey, tonight I can't move my right leg, so we're going to have to work around it, or I have to get surgery, or I have to stop, or I have to tone it down. That doesn't happen, so that has to be part of it that plays. I mean, in 21 years, I've had broken noses, pulled groins, all that shit. But like, I was unavailable for 2 weeks of TV in 21 years. And by the way, that doesn't happen in our business. Like, no matter what, you got to get a knee cleaned up, a shoulder, your
Of
neck
course,
fused,
yeah.
all these things. And one day I might have to do something, but somehow that's never happened. So one, again, I feel invincible all the time. I know it's not true because I get older, the back hurts a little bit every day. But that goes into going, one of these days I'm going to like be at work and be like, man, this is a grind. Or I'm getting, okay, just remember you're getting paid for this. That doesn't happen. Long ass days or where you're fighting over creative, sure. But when it comes down to like it's go time and your music hits and you either hear the boos or the cheers, hair stands up on my arm. And one day
Oh,
that won't happen.
okay.
But right now, whether it's 80 people or 80,000.
I
And
didn't think
the
about that. Yeah.
last year, it's been a lot more 80s than 80,000 because I've been bouncing around. But man, it is. I, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, man. It's the best.
It did, until you said that, it didn't click how much fun it must be to be back. I've been backstage at UFC to hear your music come on, and then when you come out with this big smarmy douchebag smirk, and then everyone's booing you, and that's so much better than cheers. That's
It's
because they're so invested.
I love it so much. Yeah, I cheers are cool and they happen and they're the greatest ever. My favorite is the booze.
Yeah.
Oh God. I don't know if it's because I just embraced it so much, or so many people when I was training were like afraid of it or didn't want. Like, I love it. And I guess Lance Storm was right. I am a dick, so I embrace it and I enjoy it. And it's very easy to boo me or want to punch me in the face. I totally understand. I get it.
Folks, have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming a leading alternative to vaping and smoking? Do you want to be like Dave Smith? Of course not. It's a whole new movement toward better habits, which is led by the sponsor of today's episode, Fume. What would happen if you dropped a vape from 40,000 feet in the air? Well, you might want to find out once you've tried Fume. We all have bad habits. You're out with friends. They're reaching for their bad habits. You feel the urge not to be left out. You ask to borrow one of theirs. Well, what if I told you there's a better alternative that helps you kick your bad habit in an enjoyable way, something that you can take with you? Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal tea. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla. And with flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume draws flavor to your mouth and fills the void that ditching a bad habit can leave. You still have something to reach for. No vapor, no nicotine, no batteries, and it looks awesome. And it's made to fidget with, so you can calm anxiety with magnets, snaps, and clicks. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use code MALICE to get a free gift with your journey pack. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code MALICE, or you can scan that QR code right on the screen to get a free gift with your order today. Let's get back to the show. So you gave me tickets to an event in New York. It was such a thrill. It was so much fun sitting in front row. Because again, I grew up on wrestling. It was like I've been waiting for a few years now. There was a WWF magazine with Bobby Heenan on the cover. He was my hero. A signed copy. They used to be all
Same
over
here in
eBay.
real life.
Yeah.
A hero.
Oh, is he awesome?
Yes.
Oh,
And first of all, he's hilarious. He's almost like a smart, quick Bob Euchre, but also could wrestle. But also, him and Gorilla Monsoon was one of the greatest commentary teams of
yeah.
all time because they played off each other and just so quick. And I got to talk to Bobby a couple times before he passed away. Smart and fast and funny, and what Hulk Hogan will say, an awesome wrestler, but we just never saw it.
Oh,
He was
wow.
as good or better than some of your favorites, but he was a manager, probably because of his build and what he was able to say. But man, that guy is an absolute legend, can do it all, and like absolute hero.
Yeah, so it was so fun, but the thing that really kind of triggered me after having worked with UFC guys is like we know what the choreography of actual fights is like, and it was the same as in the 80s. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, you're like world class level wrestler supposedly, and you not you specifically, you
You
don't
know,
know
I
to
know.
hook the leg. Like, are you serious? This is like 101 shit. It would drive me so crazy. Or you don't know to keep an eye behind your back
Yeah.
because someone's coming up with the steel chair again.
You know, the guy that you punched that keeps getting up, you punched him, and now you just turned your back, and you hear. By the way, you hear thuds in the ring, like someone's approaching you. Like even Michael Myers doesn't make any noise, but you know he's coming. Like yeah, the worst one is someone shoots you off the ropes. Why are you coming back?
Yeah, it's not a
What?
boomerang.
It's the lifeblood of our industry, but you got to hang on. But also there can be like. These are all the pointing out the funny things because it is a show and it's basically a Broadway show of an MMA fight. But there is pieces of like when you get my brain that you want if you have a long match, you want that first cover to not cover the legs. And you want that next one to just be like an arm on his face and you know he's kicking out, but it's a bad guy piece. And then later when you get to a giant through a table one, then you hook one of the legs up like that was it, and he barely kicks out. Then you get to your big finish, and you hook both legs and sit on top, and then you tell a story all the way through with that, and they still kick out. You're like, what? That was inside the weeds baseball, but like when you go back to the funny part is there's all these pieces are like, why are you coming back off the ropes? Like, come on.
I also it's like funny how somehow like someone gets punched in the stomach and then knocks them out. I'm like, that's not funny. You know anatomy?
That's how Houdini died. No, I don't know.
That is true. That is how Houdini died.
I love saying that to things that aren't punches in the stomach, but that was actually a punch in the stomach.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile just ran down some kid. I'm like, that's how Houdini died. It's like my favorite thing to say. But he was punched in the stomach, right? Did he?
Yes, and he got a rupture and it killed him. Look it up. This is absolutely true. One of the questions I have, and this is maybe it's kind of a little trivial, but one of the things we know from UFC is when guys are huge, especially super muscular, they gas pretty quick, right? They're not going to have the cardio because you need the oxygen to go to that physique, and it really takes a lot of it. So is that a thing also in wrestling where these guys that are big, like their matches, they're not going to be able to go the distance, or they're like some genetic freaks? I think Yokozuna is one of them who had like crazy cardio, even though he's like 500 pounds.
Right, and some are very deceiving. Like, first thing that pops in my head is Big Show. He's a big giant, whatever. Like that guy, like the last 10 years, he goes, I bike ride 28 miles a day.
Oh wow! Okay.
I eat this. I'm here. I'm doing this thing, and I go, man. It's deceptive. And you're like, I think I get, if I started from behind, I could like, no, you're not going to get it. But also there's guys like Bobby Lashley or Brock Lesnar that are just action figure, jacked, big dudes, but they also were wrestlers.
Yeah.
So I think they have that conditioning and training anyway. But also if I was working somebody who was a big guy and gasses pretty quickly, and I know the deal, and I have my job is for you to never, ever fucking know that.
Okay.
And unless that was something we were trying to portray. So there, and then you can see me going, he'll stand in the middle, and I'll go bing, 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 jump on top. He throws all this stuff, and it's like, I did all the work because I refuse to be tired. And I still have my St. Ed's conditioning from wrestling practice in high school, so it's pretty good.
So let's talk about this podcast. I think it's really smart of you and just to launch a podcast because, again, one of the things you were known for isn't necessarily like that's the other thing people need to realize. The wrestlers that you love aren't necessarily known for being good wrestlers. They're being known for being good talkers. They're being known how to get heat and put things over. So, and that is something you were very much known for. So talk about this podcast and what gave you the idea.
First and foremost, to me, the least important part of being a fantastic professional wrestler is the wrestling. And you can go into so many different ways to do it, but yes, it is like being able to talk, being able to, or have them believe that you're hurt and they can save you, all that stuff. Anyway, for years, I talked to my brother. We've been doing stuff. We've been doing sketches together, YouTube channels, comedy shows, all this stuff, fun stuff. And a couple different times, I was like, I think we should do a YouTube channel or podcast, but when you're with WWE, no matter what, the paperwork you sign is this big. And it's like, if I started it, they own it. If I start it with guests, they have to decide who the guest is. Even the topics. And it's like, okay, I understand because the reason I'm famous for the last 20 years is because working there. Totally.
Wait, I got to interrupt you because there's something germane. People don't realize this is some inside baseball. Fox News is exactly the same way. Fox News creates their own little ecosystem. You've got the Fox News personalities. They're not allowed to go on any podcast without permission. And you're not allowed to. They also like have people who aren't allowed on Fox. They basically create this synthetic reality, and I'm sure it's exactly the same thing. These are our people. We create them, but in the same sense, we own them to some extent.
Yeah, and I'm sure that goes to a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand it because when you're younger, you're like, well, what the hell? It's like, the reason people take your picture on the street is because you work for this company, not because you're good at your job. One day down the line, it'll be because you've evolved and got there. But I totally understand that, and I was like, I didn't want them to own it. I wanted it to be a jokey, funny thing. I didn't want to be like, well, you got to have one of our guys on this week, and you got to talk about this. I'm like, okay, and then maybe that's for the next 20 years. So we talked about it for years, and I said, wait till I'm out of WWE in the next year or so. I'm getting out of here, and then we can do it, and we can launch it, and just like, there's so many wrestling ones out there. I love wrestling. It's part of my life. It's part of my brother's life. He wrestled. We're at the same company right now, TNA. But we do comedy shows together, all these different things. And since it's like we're out of there, and there is so many old time guys who with like business and the booking and all these different pieces of wrestling, they're going, well, this week on Monday Night Raw, I didn't like this one thing because this match, and you're like, there's 500 of those, and there's 500 of those, and 400 of those guys would do it better than me. We're both in entertainment. We both happen to be wrestling in the same company right now, but Ryan's also writing movies. We have friends who are making movies. We have Jeff Tremaine from Jackass and doing all these different things. And we have friends that are in movie writers, actors, comedians, all these different pieces. And like, so we won't talk about what happened on wrestling this week, but we will talk about like the party the night after wrestling happened, and then this guy was there, and then this guy went through a wall, and this guy drank booze straight from the bottle and finished it, and we did this funny thing, and then we flew off to Mexico for fun. Like, it's all joking around, fun stories, and I have 20 years of stuff that, before the book comes out in 2 years, that I can get some fun stories out now and let everybody know, like, yeah, fighting behind the scenes. Like, if you were mad at what I said tonight, you should have saw what I had to fight for 8 hours, but what it really said before that. And it's like all these inside pieces that only we would have access to. And he's, Ryan, my brother, he's in LA. He's doing commercial work. He's doing movie stuff. He's writing movies. And we have all these cool friends in entertainment. And it just makes it for a fun, joking thing that touches on wrestling sometimes.
I can sum it up in one sentence. You ready?
Yeah.
Broing out with Nick and Ryan.
Yes.
Right? That's exactly what it is. So a lot
Yes.
of people say podcasts are like a friendship simulator. And basically what makes podcasts really work is when you have people who are friends, or in your case, obviously brothers who are friends as well, where you sit and it's just like when you're backstage or whatever, shooting the shit.
Yes.
And these are the stories that people tell, and it's so much fun. And it's such a great way to relax for people, to just be like, sit down, like you had a shitty day at work, pop this on, hear these assholes running their mouths, but it's fun, and it's better than, I think, like a lot of TV shows, because it's real. And it's just relaxing.
And that is the cool part, because even I go, oh, I saw this match. I'm like, I wonder what was going on behind the scenes. And it is exactly like you said. We're sitting backstage watching this match, but we're telling a story of how the sausage got made an hour before, where this person was in tears right before their music hit. And you're like, oh, yeah. And then here's a funny thing that happened. And all those pieces are so much more interesting to me, especially when there's 500 other podcasts talking about the wrestling that happened. And they're good at it. Let them have it. That's how it should
So
be.
I'm not gonna get you in trouble. So I'm not gonna ask about Vince. But
he's not the boss of me anymore. No, it's like
he's so scary.
Well, he's I could answer questions. Like, I worked for him for 20 friggin' years.
Okay,
I had to watch that entire Netflix documentary just to talk about it on Busted Open on Sirius.
Okay.
So I'm down for mostly whatever.
So you've never shit a bed. Have you ever shit a bed?
I have not.
Okay. What I really wanted to ask about,
figuratively,
have you followed Bautista's transition from Roy Beast to kind of genderless Golden Girl?
I know what you're referring to, but I have no bad words to say about this guy. He is a sweetheart to all of us.
Really?
He was, yes.
Oh,
he was an absolute sweetheart to me when we had to wrestle, when he was a gigantic name and I was crawling up to the middle, and he was very nice, sweet to me, and helpful and awesome. And usually anytime we see him or something, and also crushing it in his roles. But I think he made a conscious decision to stop being the Batista-sized guy and go, like, clearly he's into some serious acting roles now, so maybe that's a part of it. That's something I always heard when I was a kid. Like, yeah, maybe you can, like, not me, but like Big Jack, like John Cena guys and Rock. Hey, that can get your foot in the door, and then if you do want to become this serious actor online, you can't always be Arnold Schwarzenegger and pumping iron, because it'll take everyone out of it. So I respect that. I really think he's doing really well. And again, I wish I had a bad word to say. Maybe if I was 10 years younger and we had worked, it might be an issue. But the guy was an absolute sweetheart and really nice and hardworking and fun to work with.
But you've never thought about getting into acting because you're that certain archetype to a T.
Right. I think I am. And I there was a point where I did too much wrestling and never took time off, and there was roles that came my way in the old days where it was like, you could take this, but we got to tell Vince you got to miss 3 weeks of
Oh
work,
yeah,
and
you
then
right.
do you want to lose your spot? And you're like, shit, no, I don't. This is my job. Okay, so there were several of those that came and went, and there was a couple times in the old days where I was like, hey, my buddies are making this movie, and they wrote a 2 sentence thing for me, and they're like, okay, let's run it through legal. And then you don't hear anything for a month. I'm like, hey guys, they're shooting this thing. What's the deal? And they like, yeah, we'll figure it out. And then those guys eventually go, well, they said you weren't available, but they gave us 2 other guys that could do it. And I go, they said we didn't want a wrestler. We wanted our friend that we were writing this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a couple times that has happened. But also, yes, anything entertainment, like anybody else, I love if I can use it, if I can use the following I have to get like a straight to DVD movie, that many more clicks or more people around. But I did a movie with WWE Countdown where I was the lead, and it's kind of the movie was terrible, very very like the director's going, Nick, this doesn't make any sense, and I'm like, can you help us make it sense? I'm like, we're about to 3, 2, 1 action here. Like, can you help? Like, he said there's always holes in it. I think Vince had switched a bunch of different things around in the movie. But anyway, I was proud of what I did with it. But it was like, I love any entertainment stuff. And yes, and someone like me could actually have the build of well, a little taller than Tom Cruise. But you know what I mean? Like the real actor build
Yeah.
where you don't have to do it. But also, I don't have the name recognition when it comes to John Cena, The Rock, and Batista, but maybe we'll get there. They got me by a couple of years. We'll get there.
Hey folks, Michael Malice here. You might know me as a Twitter troll, terrible author, insufferable podcaster, but I'm also an underwear model, and the underwear that I model and wear every day is Sheath underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice, you get 20% off and you can be inside my pants. Why I love Sheath is they have special dual pouch technology for both parts of your male anatomy. It sounds weird. The first time I tried them on, I'm like, what is this? And now I literally wear them every day. The great thing about Sheath, it was developed by an Iraq war veteran. And you know, overseas, it gets really, really hot. And Bobby decided, all right, what can I do to make sure I'm not suffering here in this heat? And thanks to his research, you can be comfortable in the comfort of your own home. It's great for cold weather. It's great for hot weather. It keeps you secure and comfortable. And there's something really exciting about going on a job interview, going on a date, doing a podcast, knowing that your underwear has you in its grip, nice and secure and comfortable. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice. You get 20% off, and you can get one step closer to looking as much like a hunk as myself. Let's get back to the show. Is there also the thing, and I'm everyone talks about all the time how political WWE was, and you know, any organization that big, it's kind of inevitable. You know,
Oh
people are going
yeah.
to be, yeah. So one of the things I'm curious about is, was there this sense of keeping people in their place, in the sense of if a wrestler got too big for their britches, or they were getting all these opportunities outside the WWE, at a certain point it became, oh, you don't think you need us? Okay, that's cool. You don't. Bye. Or giving them less TV time or things like that. Was that a real situation?
Yeah, I feel like there's many that yeah, without it even being confirmed, but I really think it got to a point where 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, WWE was trying to, I don't know, when I was younger, when we would bring ideas to them like for outside projects, they'd mostly say no and shy away from it. Then they got to a point where Rock, uh,
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson got to a piece in a movie, and then WWE was like, "Oh, this could really be great for everybody. Okay, let's get him another movie. You know what? What's a step even better? Let me create my own film company, so then I can own all the guys and I can make my own next Rock, and then have him be a movie star, but he's still with WWE and all these different pieces." And I'm making this up, but it kind of makes sense. And it did get to a point to where Rocky got so damn big that he no longer needed WWE. But you, again, I'm just making this up, paraphrase. I wasn't there, but you get to the point where like, man, wouldn't it be great to now have the biggest movie star in the world coming back to us every once in a while? So we better treat him accordingly. to have him want to come back because he does not need us anymore. And then also that led to we should be doing all these outside projects, but we don't want anyone to become another Rock without us owning a piece or having it here of our own creation, is my guess. So then it went back down to like, hey, we're not sure what we can do, and two of our guys are allowed to do this, but you guys can't really do it, and we'll see. And I really think that was the piece of it. And then just in my last year before I left, they went, now, guys, we're back in it. Anything you got, bring it to us. We will very likely approve it as long as it's like not going to put the company in any jeopardy. Yeah. And they're going all out for it. If you want to do this, you want to have your own Twitch stream, you want to start a YouTube channel, a podcast, we'll take a cut of it and the rest is yours, and use it, and we'll make it even bigger. If you get a movie role, and then they're actively seeking movie roles for our talent. So it was like, now they're embracing it. I think it's the genius that Vince was. You really needed somebody 30 or 40 years younger to go, hey, listen, there's so many more ways to do this. The things that you laughed at last year because it wasn't us and you didn't know it. It's like, you're 80 years old. You're not supposed to know who Chapel Roan is. We are, and we're going to bring her in, things like that. So that change in the last year or two really, really helped them out. And subsequently, me going my separate ways, all wrestling right now is kind of kicking ass. It's really cool.
Yeah, because when Vince made WWF a thing, before Vince, WWF was almost like this carnival sideshow thing. It was like this regional thing at county fairs or whatever. Each area had its own franchise, and he, part through his dad, if I'm not mistaken, made a national television phenomenon. But at the same time, he had this vision of centralization. So he's going to, of course, be opposed to like YouTube, Instagram, all these other things. Like, I need to have everything in one house, even at a certain point where that's not possible, especially when the internet came around. I'm very curious of all the heels that who's actually the nicest guy in real life? Who's the most not a heel?
Who do we got that's up there that's like real life right now killing it? Like, one of the first people forget this, like Ric Flair is like in rap videos now and selling weed and kicking ass and everybody knows him and he's like strutting around, but he gets cheered. But for like 30 years in a row, he was the heel that traveled all around. And I've been fortunate enough to become his friend over the last 15 years and a mentor mostly, but also that guy will do anything for you.
Wow. Okay.
Will go above and beyond to keep the party going. He'll just be like, hey, listen, guys, it's 1 a.m. You got to get out of here. And then he just throws a wad of hundreds on the bill and goes, hey, we're good. I just want to take care of it. And he'll walk out with 6 bottles of champagne. And you're like, oh, what the hell is happening? But like, I get that's mostly partying time. But
sure, just don't get on a plane with him.
Yeah, no, yeah. You better hope it's staying in this guy. He lived through a plane crash. So,
wow.
And he came back from medically induced coma. Like, he's gonna outlive us all, I think.
Yeah.
And so he lives that life that I, even in my 40s, I can do once a month max. But like, that's someone that's like, when you get there, for the most part, he's just a guy who loves the business. He knows it like my high school wrestling record. Like, he knows inside stuff about people because he cares about so many, I think. I'm trying to think of somebody who's like villainized, evil. Then you're like, oh, actually, if you followed wrestling a long time ago, I had a girlfriend / manager that was Eddie Guerrero's wife, Vicky Guerrero. And she is the sweetest lady in the entire business. And she was so nice. And she got booed so much that it was her and I standing across from John Cena. And we were like segments 9 and 10, like a crossover segment on our Monday Night Raw. And the crowd was booing her so loudly that she couldn't get a word out that we wasted an entire segment of the crowd booing her. So then when we went to commercial, they said, hey, we're cutting a match in the back because we need to get to you and Cena doing this thing. Yeah. And that was like on the fly, a crowd, like that started this snowball of people booing her out of the building. And so every once in a while, like, even if we all know we're playing a character, when you go home, you're like, man, does everybody fucking hate me? Like,
it's gonna get to you.
It has to. No matter how smart you are, it'll get to you because you're not playing Robot X. You're playing Vicky Guerrero. So you're like, does everyone hate me?
There's a book I read called Ostracism, and about how ostracism fucks with the human mind because we're social animals. And the guy who wrote it was a psychologist, academic. And him and his colleagues, they did an experiment. It goes, okay, for one day, we're all going to ostracize you. And this is our experiment. And the
Right.
person who's the target, it got to them. They're like, I know you're not making contact, you're completely ignoring me, but it does a number on you.
Yes. And you're proving that point, like, it's coming. And that's still like,
Especially as a
what shit.
female, it can't. Especially as a female, it's got to hit
She's,
different.
yeah, and like she's sweet and nice. I'm not. I'm a dick, but we worked well together, and I'd make her laugh. She'd make me laugh. It was great. But it was just so funny. Like I would be like, I wish people were booing me like they're booing you. Like this is the dream come true. But also you get that like you're fighting every day, me, and you're like trying to win, and you don't win as much. And then if you read social media or someone's podcast, and you're like, oh, maybe I am a phony. Maybe I do suck. Oh shit, I don't. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. And then you're like, hang on a second. Everybody I work with said I'm like the best guy here.
Yeah, yeah.
Try and keep that in mind when you're reading internet comments or listen to someone else or some fans or something like
But
that.
Nick,
So
it's
it
also
is
gotta be
hard.
scary when you're a female, have large guys screaming at you.
Sure,
That's
drunk
caveman
guys
brain.
leaning
Yeah.
over trying to take
Yeah.
a swipe at you or something. Yeah, it's extra ridiculous. Yes.
I know my answer, and it's gonna be better than yours. I promise you.
Well, that's an evergreen statement, but yeah, I got you.
Which of the good guys, the faces, is actually kind of not so nice in real life the most?
Well, I don't think I'm gonna say anybody in real life, but what do you have? Let me think for a second.
Chris Benoit.
Oh, come on,
Am I wrong?
come on, man. That was a tragedy. I was not ready for that. Yeah, you are wrong. You're wrong a little bit. Like to bring that up. No,
Why is he nice? Was he nice in real life? Did you ever work with him?
when I knew him, he was very nice. Yes.
Okay.
But also, he did a horrific crime to everybody.
No,
so
but did he have were there weren't like did he have a screw loose beforehand? Were there warning signs?
You know what? I didn't notice. I wasn't around him very much. I was brand new in his last year. Brand new. And we were on different brands. But that's another one, almost like Rick, who would go, hey, man, how's your dad doing? Hey,
Okay.
It's like really nice to me. But eventually the horrific crime happened. So
there's got to be the sport obviously attracts certain types of personalities. There's got to be some people, I'm not going to ask you to name names, who are a little like have a screw loose. Like, do people get a reputation for like watch out for whatever he's not right in the head?
Well, in this day and age, not really. It's more.
Okay.
It's not right in the head, but like, oh, this guy's gonna stab you in the back, and he's gonna say you're doing this thing, and then when you get out there, he's gonna punch you in the face for real and do this other thing and totally jeopardize the show. And you're like, okay, and then there's a handful of guys at every company. Actually, you know what, at TNA, I don't have any at the moment, and I hope that stays that way. But there was always like, oh, I got this guy tonight. It'll be a fun match, but he's going to lie to me, and he's going to do something out there that we didn't talk about. And theoretically, that's jeopardizing the match and the show. And it's like, you know what? I could just punch him in the face real hard and knock him out, and then he doesn't win. But you're like, you never know. But I'm too much of a professional to do that. But there are several times where I pride myself on not. I have nothing extra to prove. If we're creating a play out there, I'm not going to give you a different line for you to feed off me. So it's I am too much of a professional to go into it. But every once in a while, if someone does it a couple of times, then you have to crack them in the face and go, hey, are we even now, or do I need to knock you out on TV? And you're like, okay. We're good.
Oh, I didn't just realize that. There must be some guys who don't get it, who don't realize that when you guys are getting in a match, it's a collaboration, and you're both there to try to make each other look good. And some people really think it is a competition, and they're going to try to look good at your expense. It's like, dude, we're a team. Like, we're trying to put over this match to the audience.
That's it. And it's like, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, those guys were fighting like do or die. Like, hey, I'm trying to be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin, so everybody, like, people are actually not easy to work with, and you can't really trust anybody. Now, it's for 20 years, we're a team. We're a traveling Broadway play team. And if I go into business for myself and do something shitty, I'm hurting the show and I'm hurting our team, and there's no extra payoff for me. But there are ways to do that to where, you can just be just a little bit shittier to everybody, and a lot of times it helps you get ahead, which sucks. But that is showbiz. That's life. That's every job that you have. Like, if you work at Amazon, there's going to be a bunch of guys that you're friends with, a bunch of guys that you don't care about, and this two real shitbag guys that you can't deal with, and you know they're trying to sabotage you. But
Yeah,
that's life.
I've got a friend, I don't know if you could call him a friend, who's a very failed podcaster, and he'll cut your throat every chance he gets, and he has this very amiable reputation, but people, have come to know that he really is kind of a bit of a snake. I'm very curious, something that makes me kind of sad is the wrestlers who came up, like you were saying, the 60s, 70s, 80s, before it became like this household thing. Now that they're older, they've got nothing to show for it, and it's not like they can go. Some of them were hired, to do office work and actually help with promotion, but a lot of them really don't have like two nickels to rub together. I'm curious as to your thoughts and the thoughts of other people in the industry about the fate of these guys.
Yeah, that is a very real thing. And as much as I don't work in WWE anymore, even when Vince was there, they once we started realizing publicly traded, this is a real thing. This isn't the Wild West on some random company where there's no rules. As we slowly we got into some drug testing, we got into health for people, all these different pieces. There were a lot of people who were dying early or penniless at 40 years old and kind of walking hunched over because they gave their body to this. And like, what the hell can we possibly do? So they did do a reach out. First and foremost, they offered rehabilitation,
Oh, wow.
taken care of.
Oh, wonderful.
All expenses paid for. If you can get a hold of us, if you're one of these people, we got it. We're going to take care of you. We're going to help you out. And then that was just the beginning. They do all these. They got people there now for the talent. Like they can go to college and they'll take care of it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
There's all these places, mental health, all this extra stuff that we very much lacked. Wild West, we were like way behind some other places. But as that started going, and now it just became. It is just this understood thing. So if somebody's not doing that great, or they're just doing conventions and getting by and signing autographs here and there, like, hey, we're going to sign you to an ambassadorship or a WWE Legends deal.
Oh,
and
wow.
every year, I'm making this up. You get $10,000 and we'll book you on TV and we'll help you with the convention. Like, there's all these different pieces that go into it. So they really started taking care. But there is a big chunk of those guys that gave so much, nothing to show for it. They had promises from promoters and different things before it was all, under one umbrella. And it really, it's sad because, and I'll do conventions sometimes and you see some guys, it's like no one's in line because they don't remember, or they're like, hey, I need to sell 2 pictures so I can get home or something. You're like, man, this sucks. But that is a very real thing.
I'm specifically thinking of someone who passed fairly recently, which is Kamala, who really was all about putting on a fun show for the audience.
Yes.
It's a complete cartoon character. I know. I watched a shoot interview of his where he talked about when he's starting out, he'd like bite the heads off chickens. He'd be like locked up in the back of a truck to really kind of sell that he's this cannibal from Africa.
Yes.
And then at the end, he's like, I think almost homeless. They cut off his legs.
I think he cut off 2 feet, I think.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know what? All the guy did was bring joy to people by putting on a show. Yes. And he seemed to be, by all accounts, like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
So like you hear stories like that, it's like that really that's very sad to me.
Yeah, and for every 1 or 2, it's like, hey, this guy in a suit who's an ambassador who's around all the time, and you're like, for every 1 or 2 of those, there's 5 guys that were like, hey, I remember that from Saturday Morning Superstars. Come on, oh my God! And it's just like, yeah, he's like he's hoping to get a job, or he's sitting at home, and you're like, man. And it's like, what can I do? How can I help? And it really became those kind of pieces that everyone started going, what can we do? How can we help?
So
where they started like hooking people up and reaching out to people even couldn't find their numbers or something like that.
Okay, that's really great that they took ownership of that. That really actually makes me very happy. Folks, head over to malice.locals.com where Nic took questions from supporting listeners. Nic, the new podcast is called Nemeth Brothers. It's out everywhere. Great success. I think it's absolutely terrific idea. And I think it's very smart of you to realize, okay, we're doing something different. Why reinvent the wheel when we can do something that's unique to me and my brother? Running out of time, what has been your favorite part of this interview?
My favorite part was right before it started. Because I said, I don't remember what it was, but it was something fun. And you're like, we'll talk about it afterwards. And I was like, okay. But that was my favorite part was you knowing a Goldust thing that I didn't. Because that's on me. I'm supposed to know.
You are welcome.
Hi, we're the Nemeth Bros. I'm Nic, and he's Ryan, and I'm a 20-plus year pro wrestling veteran, amateur comedian, F-list actor, wannabe lawyer, and once ate a 96-ounce steak, and we have a new podcast because we finally got some time on our plate. called the Nemeth Bros. The Nemeth Bros.
Hey, Nick, what is this podcast about?
This podcast is going to be about stories from the road for the past 20 plus years of my pro wrestling career, winning world championships, injuries, everything in between that you can think of. Stories about you and I putting together a comedy tour, you and I doing skits, me being an F-list actor, on-set stuff, and of course, Q&A, answered questions in depth from the fans who want to hear them the most.
Hey, what if I want to have special guests on that are like famous comedians or showbiz types?
There's no rules. This is America. Bring them in.
Hey, if we're bragging about accomplishments, I have been an extra on Jimmy Kimmel Live 27 times. Follow, rate, and review the Nemeth Bros podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Nemeth Bros.
I love reality TV on Pluto TV.
Same, and I love that it's free.
It gives me the freedom to watch Bravo's Real Housewives Vault channel.
I'm totally free to watch Bad Girls Club.
I'm free for Jersey Shore.
Love and Hip Hop, I'm free all day.
Survivor, I'm free all night.
With hundreds of free reality shows, you are totally free to watch what you love on Pluto TV.
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.